Hi, I am Avery and I work at Connect Ministries as a graphic designer, and these are 4 common mistakes that I see people make in graphic design, specifically churches. So for an example, we're going to pretend that we are making a graphic for social media to promote a Sunday service for Easter. And we're going to jump right in with our very first mistake and how to fix it. So on this actual design that I have all of the information that we would want to talk about. And we see that it's First Baptist Church and Pastor Jeff is speaking, and there's an Easter service, and there's a 6 a.m. sunrise, and a 9:30 service, and an 11 a.m. service. And I think it's too much information. And our very first tip is to keep it simple. And for keeping it simple, what we're going to do is make one main point. So our one main point is that there is an Easter service. A lot of these things are extra. And I think a common mistake that I see a lot in graphic design is trying to fit too much onto a simple graphic. So the first step is just to delete things. So there's some things that they can find by looking up. So maybe we don't need the address on there. And maybe there's some things that could be a happy surprise when they show up, or we can make a separate post about it. So bringing eggs for the egg hunt, and what passage they're going to go through, and where overflow parking is, maybe is not the best idea, and who the pastor is, they'll find out when they get there. And then we kind of end up with something very simple. So I deleted many things, and now we've ended up with Easter service, the times, and the name of the church. Our next common mistake is that there's no clear focal point. Everything is weighted the exact same, and your eyes don't know where to go. So let's look at this and see where we end up. So as we can see, we have the name of the church, Easter service, and all of the details of the service are all the exact same text, the exact same size, they're all evenly spaced, and your eye just looks at it first. But something that we can do to make a piece of a graphic much better is to have visual hierarchy. So the thing that's most important, you make the biggest. The thing that's least important, you make the smallest. So I would say if we have the logo of the church eventually, or the name of the church, that can be pretty small because they're probably already on your account if they're seeing this, or some person that is sharing this is probably known to have gone to this church. So we can keep the name not so big, we can leave it on there, but keep it smaller. And a big thing that we want them to know is that an Easter service is happening. That's the most important thing. They need to know that it's the Easter service. People are looking for an Easter service if they're looking at this graphic. And then we can say the next most important is probably the time. So then we'll make the times a little bit bigger. And that's the whole next point. So just have visual hierarchy. So your eye goes to the biggest thing first, the second biggest thing next, and then the third biggest thing last. The next biggest mistake that I see in graphics is that there is an inconsistent style. They use a lot of fonts and a lot of colors, and it's not very consistent. And if you look at the page overall, you can see that it's hard to find consistency. And one thing I'll tell you is that consistency in your graphics helps promote a lot of trust. People learn to expect it, and they can look at your graphic and know that it's from your church if you keep a vibe. So my third tip is to keep a vibe. And when I say vibe, I just mean a few colors, maybe 3 colors, one of them being white or black, and then 2 fonts. If you start getting more than that, then you start kind of having a lot of variety in your designs, and people don't quite know that it's you by just looking at it. And that should be the goal. The goal should be for them to look at a design no matter what it's for and know that First Baptist Church made this design because it looks like this and it has these fonts and these colors. So let's look at our design and see what we can do. For First Baptist Church, I've made an example vibe, but yours would depend on your church. So for this, we have a strong electric blue, and we have a navy, and we have a white. And then for our heading, I really like something bold as a header, so I've chosen 20th century. But a helpful tip is if you're on Canva or you're on somewhere, maybe you can just type in bold and see what things pop up. And you'll find all kinds of fonts that are super bold. Those are good headings. Then for a second font, it's really helpful to have something that is good in paragraphs. Usually things that are good in paragraphs are serifs. Serifs is the little edges on the end of your design, and they make it very legible in big paragraphs. Or you could have really clean sans serifs, and that makes it good for body copy too. but something that would be good if it was an entire paragraph full is good for your second design. And you can kind of see, like I said, on Canva here to the side, you can go to textiles and you can see serif and type it in, and you're gonna get all kinds of things that are good paragraph fonts, or you can type in sans serif and see what you get. One thing that I really like, one specific font is EB Garamond. That's my favorite, so I'm gonna choose that. And now, once you have your vibe, it's time to incorporate it into your design. And no matter what design I'm making, whether it's for this Easter service or for a 4th of July party, I'm gonna try to use these colors. And every once in a while you can add one to make something specific, but what's gonna make your brand or your church or your graphic recognizable is keeping it consistent. So let's change these. So as a header, I said I was gonna use 20th century. So I'll type that in. That is 20th century. Here on these, we can make them okay. Then for our logo, let's also keep this. Actually, because it's our logo, if you want to make sure that your logo is present in as many designs as possible, which I would recommend, you could probably, instead of typing out the name of your church, you could just add the logo somewhere in the corner. So let's go and find a logo and add it. Here's one. This is our logo for First Baptist Church, and I'm just going to add that to the top. That was one more way to make it recognizable to someone if they're looking. They see our logos in it, and it's probably a design by us. And if we're making the background a different color, we know that this is black. Black's not one of our colors, but navy is, so we can change it. We can make the entire background blue. That's one of our colors. Change these to white to make them pop. And sometimes it's trial and error. So I'm looking at the best color logo for this brand, and it's looking like we need a lighter one or a navy one. This one looks great, so I'll just slide that one to the top. The next mistake that I see commonly in graphic design is that there is too much clutter. So the tip that I have is just to keep it clean. And that is kind of easy because it just means limiting yourself when you get to adding graphics. So because it's an Easter graphic, I could add Easter eggs, and I could add pennant flags, and I can add bunnies, and I can add chocolates, and I could add all the things that halfway feel like Easter, and I could have the tomb that Jesus came out of and the 3 crosses, but I'm just gonna leave it really, really simple and see if I can find something that fits in our brand, that kind of fits our style and also represents the situation that we're celebrating. So I'm gonna just look up random Easter graphics and see if we can find one that's not overwhelming, that still fits in our vibe that we have going on, and see if that will be a fun ad. So you can look up any keywords related in an Elements tab in Canva, or if you're just looking for graphics online, you can just search them up and see what you find. The first one that I'll search up here is, let's see if there's any cool crosses. A lot of these are multicolored, maybe too many colors what we're thinking, or they don't feel very clean. So I'm just seeing if there's anything that would fit. This one's not too bad, so I'll add that. We'll change it to one of our colors. And if I'm looking for somewhere to put it. Okay, and now I wanna see, maybe we can even add some more white, because the navy and the white don't feel like they're going closely together. We can add something that looks like a layering effect. Kind of like that, kind of looks like a shadow. Okay, so now we have navy incorporated, the white kind of fits in a little bit so it doesn't feel so separated from the crosses. Add this back in, and because this is in the corner, it could be just in the corner, but I'm kind of thinking I want to add it back long ways. And for our logo, let's have it long ways on the top, and ours logo kind of looks like this. So I'm just recreating it at the top. First Baptist, put that in the top corner. And one way that I would kind of make the mistake that I see a lot of designers make would just be to keep adding. Okay, well, we have the 3 crosses. Could I also add in other things? And to that, I would just say, keep it really simple, because if you're adding it onto a social media post, there's probably really busy pictures or other graphics nearby it. And the simpler it is, the easier it is going to be digest the message to the audience, and also just the cleaner and simpler that your page will look. But don't be scared of graphics. You can add them, but just don't go overboard would be my advice. And try to keep them in the colors that you have decided is your vibe. And to the person that just says, sometimes my favorite graphics are the ones that are really busy. To that, I will say something that my typography teacher once told me, which is start by following the rules until you start seeing what looks really good and works for your area, and then see where you can break the rules in a way that still makes sense. So if there is one situation where you think a ton of graphics in this specific way will look good, and you've put on your page many graphics that are very simple following these rules, then try to take a chance every once in a while. But if you take a lot of chances every single time, I think that's where you start to get clutter, and that's where you start to get inconsistency. So if you take a chance, be careful in the way that you take it in a reasonable way, and just make sure that you're thinking of the audience when you keep it in mind. So on this side, we'd have, if you are overcomplicating your design's probably looking like this. You're trying to squeeze in too many ideas, too much text, too many elements, and it just looks a little cluttered. So my tip to you would be keep it really simple. What is the main idea that your audience needs to hear? What is the main thing that they need to get from the graphic? Keep it simple. If you have to make multiple posts to get all of your things across, you can do that, but think about like the 1 or 2 main things that they need to know, and add that to the graphic here. So before and after. The next mistake is that there is no clear focal point, and the solution is to keep the main thing, and keep it bold. So on this side, everything is weighted the exact same. They're all the same size and they're all the same font, and you don't know what's most important. But on this side, as you can see, the most important thing is the biggest and the boldest, and then from there, still important things, but not as important, are a little bit smaller for the audience to read. Their eyeball is going to go to the biggest thing first, and then to the next, and then to the next. The third mistake is that there's an inconsistent style. In every post, your graphics have 12 fonts and 3 colors, and it looks a little crazy. Or you can make a vibe and keep that vibe. That would be my tip to you, my third tip. And your graphics can look like this, or whatever your 3 colors and 2 fonts are. So if you have those, use them in your design already, or if you need to make them, this is a fun way to just set the style of your church. And your graphics can look like this, and over time, they make a big difference. So on this side, I have an example of a social media grid that has all kinds of designs without a clear vibe. Many different fonts in every one. No graphic is necessarily bad, but they don't necessarily have the same style. And on this side, they have kept a similar style, and they've intermixed pictures, and they've added similar fonts and colors to every design, and now their page looks cohesive. And I can look at this Instagram grid, and I know that this is First Baptist Church, and I can look at this Instagram grid and not really tell who it's from. So the third tip is to keep a vibe. The fourth mistake is that is too much clutter. So if you look on this side, there are all kinds of Easter-related graphics, and it looks very Eastery, but it is too crowded and you can't really tell exactly what they're trying to say after you put all the work in to make the main thing. So I would say pick 1 or 2 graphics, try to make those intertwine with the vibe that you have set. And on this side, you'll see what it may look like. And over time, if you keep it simple, it helps keep your grid from being too cluttered. So the solution to that one is to keep it clean. And just as a review, we want to keep it simple, we want to keep the main thing, we want to keep a vibe, and keep it clean. These 4 things will help improve your graphics from being a little scattered to being more cohesive, and I think your audience will be able to tell a difference, and you'll be able to communicate clearly to the people that you're trying to reach.